Good. So if I asked you to multiply these, everybody in here, I'm sure, would be able to do that, right? To multiply them. We've been doing that. I think we did it in the last chapter. We did it a couple of days in this chapter. All you have to do is start here. And remember the other day we called it FOIL, the first. The first two, what's that? X times X. And then move over X times -3. Those are the outsides. Then I have to do the insides. What's that? 3 times X, positive 3X. And then the last two, the last with the last, what do you get there? Oops, I forgot my X. And if you simplify that, do I have any other X squareds? No, that one stays. I don't like this color, it's too hard to see. So X squared, that takes care of that one. What about these? What's 3X and -3X? No X's, right? They're gone. So then I just have a, right? Everybody agree? And by the way, before I go any farther, do you notice anything about the quantities that I'm starting with? I picked those for a reason. Do you notice anything? Do you notice anything? Hello? Hello? Do you notice anything?
One's positive and another one's negative.
One's positive and another one's negative? But otherwise, they're the same thing, right? It's a 2X and a 5, one's positive, one's negative. It's an A and a 7, one's positive, one's negative. It's an X and an X, 3 and 3, one's positive and one's negative. They're the same quantities, just one positive and one negative in there, right? Just shake your head a little bit, please. Oh, thank you. So notice when I multiply, I end up with X squared minus 9. Let's do another one. I have first 2X times 2X. Is that 4X squared? Maybe? And then what's 2X times -5? -10X. Then I'm going to move over and do these two. Positive 10X. Agree? And then what's positive 5 times -5? Here, I'll circle these two because they're the same. So I have a 4X squared. What happens to those middle ones? They cancel each other out. 10X, take away 10X, drops out. And so then I just have a -25 for my answer. 4X squared minus 25. What about here? What's A times A? A times -7. Move over. Positive 7A. And what's 7 times -7? Right? Here, I'll circle these for you while you're thinking. Anything else to combine with A squared? No. Those two, what happens to those two? They cancel each other out again. And then I just have a -49. Now I want to ask if you notice anything in the answers. What happens when you multiply those out? We multiplied same quantities with the opposite signs in the middle. Same quantities, just a positive and negative. Same quantities, just a positive and negative. What happens to your answers? What happens to the middle term? Maybe I should ask you that. In every single case, it cancels each other out. And that will happen every single time you have the same quantity with a positive and negative. That's called the difference of, well, no, that's not, but what we're going to do next is called the difference of two squares. So you notice that when you have same quantities with the opposite signs, the middle term drops out every single time. Because here's what we're going to do today. That's not what we're going to do today. But what we're going to do today is we're going to factor a squared minus 49. In other words, what we're going to do is go backwards. From here, from this point, I want to know what two things multiply together to give me that. I want to know what things multiply together to give me this. I'm going to go backwards and try to figure out what multiplies together. Factor it. And remember, we factored so far, but when we factored so far, what we looked for was something common to those. That's what we did the other day. You factored it by looking for something in common. What do these two have in common? A 2. And you took that out. And then in parentheses, you put what's left. What's left? Plus 2 times what is 4? 2y. So that's one way of factoring, by looking to see what's in common and taking that out. But if I ask you to factor and you try to look for something in common here, guess what? There isn't anything in common, is there? So always when it asks you to factor, the first thing you should do is try to find something in common. If there's nothing in common, then you have to move on to plan B. And plan B is sort of what we noticed here today. When you have the same quantity with a positive and negative, that middle term drops out. You don't have a regular old A term. You don't have a regular old X term. It dropped out. So since there's nothing in common that I can pull out, the next thing I'm going to have to do is try to factor it with the 2 sets of parentheses. What times what is a squared? What 2 things have to multiply together to give you a squared? A times a. Has to be a times a. What 2 things multiply together to give you 49? 7 times 7, it has to be. And how do you multiply and get a negative? It's got to be a positive and a negative, right? So hopefully today these won't be too hard to factor for you. What if I ask you to factor x squared, take away 9? Is there anything in common to those 2? No, there's nothing in common to take out. So your next possibility is to make the 2 sets of parentheses and see what times what gives you x squared. Has to be x times x. What times what gives you 9? 3 times 3. And what should I put in there for the signs? Positive and negative. So far, so good? It's not that bad, right? So far. And there's not any work really to show for that, is there? Not any work really to show for that? So let's see what else we can get here. How about this? How about let's try something a little bit more challenging. How about 4x squared take away 49? Is there anything in common with those two? No, there's not. Now I have a 4 there. What times what gives you 4? 2 times 2? And then I have an x squared. So what's this going to be? 2x, 2x. What about 49? 7 and 7. Signs? Positive and a negative. Or a negative and a positive. It doesn't matter which one comes first. Does that sort of make sense? It's not too bad, right? They might try to throw you for a little loop. Oh, they might try to throw you for a little loop. How about something like this? Oh. What times what is 16? What times what? 4? 4? 4 times 4 is 16? And don't forget about the x squared has to be x times x. What about 625? You know it has to be some number times itself. So you know what you might have to do? Get out the old calculator. Try like 20 times 20. That's going to be 400, I think. What times itself is 625? What do you have back there? It's like I need to get out of here. What times what? But it's got to be times itself. It's got to be like 3 times 3, 7 times 7, 5 times 5, 3 times 3. It's got to be a number times itself. And it's got to be bigger than 20 because 20 times 20 is 400. What do you say?
25.
He says 25, is that right?
Yeah.
What's 25 times 25? 625. That one's a little more challenging because you couldn't just look at it. It's 25 times 25. If you can't figure that one out, let me know and I'll just help you with it. I won't put one that big on the test, probably. But one last thing, what about the signs? Well, if they're negative, it's all got to be a positive and a negative. And that's what I was mentioning before, a little too early. Difference of 2 squares. What's 25 squared? What's 25 squared? 625, right? What's 4 squared? It's 16, right? So always for today's, these are going to be some number times itself. 4 times 4. Some number times itself. 25 times 25 for all of these today. Does that make sense? Yes? Go like this. Yes, I've got it. No, wait. You got 3 choices. Yes, I've got it. No, I don't have it. Or Let me see your thumb. Not middle finger, Camden. I said thumb. Middle finger. So we're all good? Do you have questions? Questions? Are there any questions? All righty, let's see what we got. Would that be page 206? I'm going to try to follow my lesson plan book today. Page 206. page 206. I'm gonna go at the bottom. I guess I'm not following the lesson in the book today. Start at 27. How about 27 to 40? You know what? 27 to 38. 27 to 38. What page was that? Thank you. Page 206. And how much work did I say? How much work will you have to show? 0. This is one case where you probably will have just answers. I have 27 to 38, and we'll call it good. (27 to 38). This is maybe we can't see.